Hi, this is Ingrid from Quiltessential Co in St. Albert, and we're doing February 2026 block of the month, and we're again using our special 2 peaks in 1 ruler, and this is the block you're going to be making. And it's kind of special because you've got the pinwheel in the middle, and then you've got these other bars around the sides, so when you actually put it into a quilt, if you were to make multiple of the same block, looks really cool. So let's go and cut. So when you're cutting, I like to try and be as efficient as possible. First of all, pull all your fabrics out of the bag, make sure you know which one's which, and label them A, B, C, D, E, and then you'll be ready to cut. So if you take, and I did mention this in the notes, A and B and stack them together, you can cut right across and make those two cut the same all at once because they're both the same size. C is one long rectangle too, and then the same with D and E. I would stack those together and cut them because there's 2 squares that you have to cut from each color and they're exactly the same size, so it just makes it a little faster. And then you have F, and there are 4 rectangles, and now we're going to sew it all together. Take your A and B right sides together, and you're just going to stitch all the way along the long side. Now we want to press these open. How I like to do this is, because of course you can press it open and just find your center spot here, but I find sometimes if I do that, I'll show you actually, if I do that, I find it kind of pops back up, which is a bit annoying. So here I'm pressing it, but it's already starting to pop up. But if you use the Acorn Precision pen, and some of you have this from other block of the months before, it's like a liquid in here. And you just go along like this. When you press it, it stays super flat and it will not pop back up. So that's what I like to do with mine, so that it's nice and flat. So it will stay like that even if you pick it up and move it around, it'll still go back to flat. Now we're going to be cutting that, and we're going to be using our 2 peaks in 1, the fat end or the wide end of the ruler, and put the white numbered strip on the bottom and the blunt on the top. So I always tell you which number on the side to use, and you're going to be cutting up on either side of this and then turning it around and cutting again and cutting again. So when you do that, you will end up with 2 that have your B on the top, A on the bottom, and you will have 2 that are the opposite. They have A on the top and B on the bottom. And this is what it's going to look like, right like these. So you're cutting those 4 out. Now we're going to cut our narrow strips. So take C, and I have this wrong sides together folded in half. I like to give it a little press down the fold so it doesn't spring up while I'm working. And I am going to cut with the same white line that I've told you to. You don't take much off, take a skinny little piece off the side. And the next thing I'm going to do, and this is what I showed you in all your notes, is I like to move it just 1/8 of an inch over so that my strip is just a little wider than they ask for. Cut it. When you turn it, and you also do the next one, same thing, line up your bottom, line up your blunt, and I like to move it over slightly so that we just have a little wider piece here. And then you make sure you turn it, and you're going to cut the baseline off here, straight here, cut off this little corner point, and cutting off the corner will make it much easier to sew. And I'll get back to you in 1 minute. So you're going to take each of your wide triangles, add your small triangle. Remember, you've cut that little notch, so you can place that on the top, line this straight up here. You should have a tiny little triangle on the end that you see. Sew all the way down here, press to the side, and then you're going to do the same thing with the other one. line up the flat, and you should see a little triangle down here, sew down here, and do this back here. And I'm just going to pretend for now, but this will be on here. And we're now going to trim it up. Make sure when you trim that you put the line that I tell you to right on the peak of that, so that when you do trim up the sides, that you actually have it completely in the center. You don't want to trim it slightly one way or the other. So trim those up, and you should end up with 4. And you're going to sew 2 together like this, 2 together like this, and then make your center block. And now we're going to make these units in the corner. Now in the next step, I'm showing you 2 different ways of doing this, because some of you from other classes or other block of the months have the 4-in-1 triangle ruler half square from Creative Grids, and this is quite useful for this little step here. So let's start with that one first, and then I'll show you an alternate method. So you're taking the back of your light square, and this is your D, and you're going to mark, just tip your pencil in like this, mark here, mark in the slot. Oh, I broke my pencil. So mark in the slot here, and you'll have 2 lines, pretend there's one right here, 2 lines to follow along with it. And you're going to put it right sides together with E. And then we're going to sew on those lines, okay? So that's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is just taking, oh, here I have a magic pencil that just arrived. So let's just put that back on here. So you put your diagonal on there and mark. So now you have 2 lines, and you will be just sewing on that line and sewing on that line, because they're exactly 1/4 of an inch away from your center diagonal. The other way you could do this is on the back of your D square, just draw a diagonal line right on this point to point, corner to corner, place it with your E, and when you sew, you're going to sew 1/4 of an inch away from this, turn it around, and 1/4 of an inch away from that. So I'm just going to go sew it, and then we will cut and talk. So it doesn't matter what method you follow. I have sewn either side of that diagonal line or on the lines I made with a 4-in-1 ruler. So let's just go back to the 4-in-1. Say you do this, you are now going to cut this in half before you open that up. You're going to put the line I told you to put on right on the thread and get it all nice and even this side, or if you're left-handed on the other side, and trim that off, and that will give you a perfect half square triangle, and you're going to press it. If you don't have that ruler, you are going to press it, and then you're going to trim. So either way, you need to trim it up to whatever size I told you to do. So you will then trim that up, and now we're going to sew it all together. So you have your 2 half square triangles on either side of F, press, and then you have the same on the other side, and in the center you just have an F triangle on either side of your center square you've made, and there you have your block. Sew the rows together, press the way I told you, and there you go. Lots of things are happening at the store. New class list is out. We've got beautiful new Tilda Songbird fabric in, and we're also having a special event in April where Deb Strain, who designs fabrics for Moda, and Barb from Coach House Designs, and she's from Canada, she designs patterns. They're both coming in April to do classes and trunk shows, so you really have to check our website out about that. And I hope you found this video useful today, and please leave us a like or click subscribe for future content. And I hope you enjoyed doing the block of the month. This has been Ingrid from Quiltessential Co, and I will sew with you again next time.